Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world. And my name is Vicky Thomas, and I am your founder and host of Hit Talks Live. And I am so pleased that you are here with us live, and I'm so pleased that you are here also watching the replay. And I'm even super excited because this is one of our special editions. And people say to me, Vicky, what is Hit Talks all about? Well, Hit Talks is where we bring together 8 amazing people, 4 women, 4 men, and they speak from the heart on 8 different perspectives on hope, on inspiration, and on transformation. But they're also going to be speaking on truth because we have this amazing special edition episode with Tahira, and it's the Golden Doors Award. And this special edition has been collaborated through a soul friendship, from knowing that together we can make a difference, knowing that together we can help people use their voice, knowing that together we can spread hope, inspiration, transformation, and truth out there. So I am super excited to host this special editions. Well, let's say co-host, because Tahira is going to be your host for this special edition. So thank you every single person for being here on the live and on the replay, and I have so much gratitude and so much love now to pass the stage to your host for this afternoon, this evening, or this morning, whatever time of the day it is in your part of the world, to Tahira.
Hi, Vicky. Thank you so much. Yes, co-hosting with you, isn't that a pleasure? I'm here, in Asia where it's 3 a.m., but bright and awake, and really excited to host this special edition, Hit Talks Golden Door, a wonderful synergy of hope, inspiration, transformation, and then truth and integrity coming together. And as the founder of Golden Door, you know, we met. I think it was probably a couple of months ago, Vicky and I, and such a soul connection we had. Um, Similar vision and aspiration to see some of the speakers here examples of who we would like to raise up, elevate, because they have something special, each of them. And I like to use the word messenger. Each of them are messengers. They carry a deeper truth within them. And they will be, or they already are, messengers of hope, inspiration, and can impact transformation for all those who are attending right now. And so the 8 speakers I have here, let me see, all of them, yes, they're all in different time zones. So Singapore, South Africa, India, where else do we have? New Zealand, right? So all of them are actually the winners of different levels of different, there are 2 different categories. I'll explain a little bit more about Golden Door. So the 2 different categories, they're all winners, and they're part of the top 20 shortlist, and Golden Door Awards 2020 just finished with the inauguration on the 5th of September, the first event, inauguration. And it's been recognized as the world's first Writers' Awards that's based on truth and integrity of the written word. So it was quite a journey establishing it. And really creating that concept and making sure it's workable and having a slightly different kind of judging process. So the writers here, who are also now speakers, they've been selected based on a slightly different judging process, not just as writers, but also as messengers of truth and how they embody it and how they speak it and how they practice in their daily lives. So in totality. So we look at that whole thing and holistically. So yes, I'm really excited to introduce each and every one of them, and who've gone through this journey in 2020 when we launched such a special and also tumultuous year. But what other year is more important than this in terms of bringing out truth when there's so much misinformation right now? And when I say truth, it's there's so much to it. There's different angles, but then it's all led by a higher purpose. It's led by something which is much deeper, and led by something that is, you know, that is a very personal. That's what it is. It's very deeply personal, and not altered for the world. It's close to the heart as much as possible. As you say, Vicky, speaking from the heart, they're writing from their hearts. They're not driven by just the world, but they're driven by their hearts. And what they bring out, we aim to help them bring it up even further. And which is the reason why we have this amazing collaboration with, Hit Talks. So with that together, I'm going to introduce each person one by one, just briefly, and then we'll have the first speaker. Okay. We have Jeremy Montero, who's the first speaker in Singapore, a musician. Prasanjit Basu, who is based in Philippines right now, was in Singapore, an economist. We have Talula, who's based in Goa, India, and we have Roshani, based in Mumbai, I believe, Mumbai, India. Dr. Judy Delalmini in South Africa, and Rusty Labashane, based in South Africa, previously in Zimbabwe, and then we have Tony Knight, based in New Zealand. Okay, so I'm going to introduce the first speaker. All right, Jeremy, I'm going to introduce you now. And each of them, as Vicky shared, has about 8 minutes each. So they will share the deeper truth, their inspiration for you. I don't really know what they're going to talk about, but I'm going to trust them on it. we've been getting them to speak quite a bit already, the whole journey of Golden Door. Speaking. So they probably didn't expect this as writers. But then the written truth and the spoken truth comes together. So Jeremy, as I would describe him, as a polymath. Yes, he's a polymath. I'll explain to you why. He's a jazz musician. An outstanding jazz musician, very well known in Singapore, in fact, extremely well known. And you can see now, he is also a writer. The judges have obviously been impressed by his work. He is the second prize, shared second prize for the book category. He's also a bronze medalist for the Golden Door Rex Kamavir. Golden Door Rex Kamavir is for the Change Champions. So that's Jeremy, but he's also a watchmaker. Can you imagine that? I didn't even know that. He's got a sort of luxury brand watch, which is on his name. So he's a polymath, and now he's speaking. And I'm excited to see what Jeremy has to say, because he's one thing great about Jeremy is that he speaks out his message to different levels, very high levels even. And he does it in such a way that it doesn't offend anyone, but he speaks his truth. Especially in Singapore, he speaks his truth. He's not fearful, but he doesn't offend anyone. So Jeremy, I am going to give it to you. Let me see. Are you there? Yes, okay.
Yeah,
so,
yes.
Yes, so I hope that was a good introduction. I think definitely it was. So you can begin.
Thank you very much, Tahira. Really a pleasure to be here with all my fellow Golden Door family members. Today, Tahira, you accused me of being a polymath, and I've been accused of many things. But that's the first time, and it's an honor to be accused of that. I have been called a legend, but I've always said that I'm a legend only in my own lunchtime. So, it's really an honor to be here. I am a musician at heart. I do many things, but I think the most important thing that I do is being a musician. And a musician is an artist. And an artist actually plays a very important part in the community. In the very early primal days, the musician was actually the shaman of a village in primal times. He would supervise the drawing in the caves that we now see when people uncover all this cave drawings and so on and so forth. He would organize the dances. The dances could be to celebrate a harvest, could be to bring in the rains or whatever it is. And also the musician, the shaman was also the witch doctor to provide healing. Nowadays, the musician doesn't have to do the healing so much directly because they are of course, doctors and so on and so forth. And but a musician still does healing in the way of sending out good energy with his or her music. So I'd like to talk for a minute about how I got started. I was a young boy, and my father used to have jam sessions at home at home. And one day I jumped on the organ and electric organ that my father had bought, and started playing with two hands without any training before that. And my father's friend said, you know, Monty, his nickname was Monty, you gotta sell this organ and buy a piano and get piano lessons for your son. So my father sold the organ and bought a Chinese-made piano called a blessing piano. And indeed, it was a great blessing for me because it went on to be my career. I realized very soon, when I was 14 years old, I already knew I wanted to be a professional musician. And so when I left school at 16 years old, I was lucky to go for an audition and not only get the job as a pianist in the club in Singapore, but also the band leader, where my musicians were 20, 30 years older than I. And I was lucky they gave me the cooperation. I went on the next decade to write jingles. I wrote 700 over jingles, including producing 4 national songs, which are just under the national anthem. Like in America, they also have America the Beautiful, which is a secondary anthem. So I was involved in all 4 national songs, and I composed one of them, besides being the music director for the rest. I left Jingles in 1991. I couldn't really take it anymore because it was just too many hours and just too much pressure, too much stress. And the worst thing about it was that you had all these invoices, make you look very rich, but you had no money, and you had to pay all the musicians off and pay the studios. But the clients at that time, the advertising agencies, took forever to pay you. So I said I had enough of this, and went on to concentrate to be a jazz musician in the 1990s. In the 80s, I actually started writing a little bit. I wrote a little bit for the Straits Times. I wrote for Car and Driver magazine, and I was the Far East correspondent for Keyboard magazine in the US. But I took too much time. And so I said, no, I don't want to do this. This is not very productive for me. So today I want to talk a little bit about what it means to be a musician and how to grow to be a musician. I think that art is when mind, body, and spirit are in alignment. Okay, mind for a musician, and I guess you can draw the parallels for whatever career or vocation you have. Mind is the knowledge you gain as a musician, learning the theory, listening to all the great repertoire there is around the world, and just becoming well versed with the theory of music in your head. Body is the physical part. So a musician is I'm very athletic, but only on my fingers, because I've spent hours and hours playing. The rest of me is not very athletic at all. And spirit depends. If you believe in the divine, as I do, then you can get inspiration from the divine. You open up yourself to the inspiration from the divine. So if you're not a religious person, or if you do not believe in the divine, if you're atheist, for example, then you can draw inspiration coming from nature, from humanity, from your family, and just the beauty of life and friendships and so on and so forth. So when you create music, you have to make sure that when you think about what you want to do, when inspiration comes to you, are you able to process it with the knowledge that you've gained as a musician? Can your lips, if you're a blowing instrument musician, or can your hands, or can your voice, if you're a singer, therefore carry the message that you're receiving that's already gone through the filter of your knowledge? And are you able to open yourself up to inspiration and use yourself as a vessel, as a channel to bring love from wherever your inspiration is coming from and transmit it to your audience? I think that is a very important part of a musician's life. I've done a Christmas concert in Singapore for 14 years, and I have a mission statement when I do my concert. My mission statement is, I want everyone in the audience to leave with a smile on their face and a glow in their hearts. And I think I'm not the only musician who has this kind of sort of ambition and intention whenever we do our art, or whenever we make our music. I think it's very important to us. The very important thing that we have to remember as a musician is that we have to learn the difference between our work and a job. A job to me is something that someone does to make a living and pay the bills. The work is your life mission. So someone could, as his job, be a taxi driver, for example, for 5 days a week, and his work is to, let's say, volunteer at the Salvation Army on Saturday or Sunday. So for me, I think that's very important to realize, because sometimes we have to do work that we don't, a job that we don't really like, playing at a corporate function where no one is listening. And then our work is, of course, playing to people who will give us the time of the day, and so on and so forth. I'd like to talk a little bit about how I've then learned to divide the creative energy that I feel within me in the various manifestations, music and writing now, and also in watch creation. And I have to thank a friend of mine who lives in Milan, near Milan, Bruno Brugnano. He's from Milano, he lives in Bangkok now, a great composer for horror movies of all things, but he actually once spoke to me about how he was able to, on the one hand, work on music, on another hand, work on interior design, and he was also a restaurateur with a lovely Italian restaurant in Bangkok, and he was able to just go between the three. And he said to me, creative energy is creative energy. How you manifest it is up to you. And this gift he gave to me 10 years ago is now very much manifested in my life. I still continue to play music, 54 years since I started playing music, 44 years professionally, writing now, I'm working on my second book, and also working on watch creation. I would say I'm a watch creator, not a watchmaker, but the watchmaker is the guy that really does all the work in the factory. And I just want to say that it's very important for us to continue to improvise. Creativity is like stem cells. It doesn't know what it is until you apply it to a petri dish to become liver cells or to become heart cells. But creativity is definitely something that you do, that you let it flow and let it manifest in every way you want. So please improvise, innovate, find common ground, promote love and goodwill and collaboration, and keep creating, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. That was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And yes, you are a sort of a master co-creator, as you say, with the divinity. And I completely agree about how you just let the creative juices flow, and depends on what your intention is. What you want to create, you can create it. There's nothing that's going to stop you. Yes, I totally relate with that story. You know, I'll tell you what about myself, technologist and also hat maker. Didn't share that before. I used to be at the Derby, and I was invited to Melbourne because I won the Melbourne Cup hat design. So that was like, so there's always so much we can do. And yes, and the fact that you're such a great musician and also great writer. So there's no limit. I spoke about this in the first time I was in the Hit Talks. I think Vicky knows this. I talk about being limitless. This is what limitless is about. Not putting ourselves in those boxes and boundaries. And even the kind of book we can write or blog we can write. You don't have to stick to one genre. It can be multiple genres, whether it's a non-fiction or fiction or poetry. I believe everyone can write poetry. So it's all in us. It's just how we plan to flow that energy. So there's a great story, Jeremy. Yes, a watch creator. I'm going to check out your watches you shared with me. And yes, really beautiful. So now who's next? Let's see some of this. I'm getting a lot of messages, by the way, from people. From Selena, lovely story, Jeremy. Creativity is what contains synergy in the world. Without this, the world would be dull. Absolutely. Okay. The Renaissance man-woman is not defined in the box. The return of the Leonardo da Vinci's, Michelangelo's, Plato, who wrote about governance, who was a philosopher, mathematician, all that. Okay, so next we have Sanjit K. Basu, who is in Philippines now, used to be in Singapore. He is, has had multiple roles as a chief economist for organizations. I mean, very, very senior roles. There we go. Chief Asia economist, you can see all this designation. Credit Suisse, First Boston, senior researcher, Maybank, Macquarie Securities, Wharton economic commentary writer. I mean, he's been featured all over in many, many press, New York Times, India Today, Financial Times, everywhere. And his book, his monumental book, Asia Reborn, talks about, well, about the history, about India, about the British, so about the truth about the history. And of course, more than that, such an amazing book. I shared with him earlier that just his journey of writing the book is an inspiration because there's so much in it. Very few people have that depth of knowledge and a depth of knowledge and vastness of knowledge. He's like an ocean, broad and deep. And there's almost nothing he doesn't know. He is an absolute historian. And also the courage to bring out the truth and to take close to 20 years, I think. Can you imagine that? Who has the patience and the perseverance these days? Now they're talking about books within 6 weeks. We're talking about that. You know, cookie cutter, rapid churning. So I'm not going to say too much, but Prasanjit, pass the stage to you. He is, like me, 3 a.m. in the morning. And I would love to hear from you, Prasanjit. We would all love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Tahira. My book and my truth is about the modern history of Asia, the economic and political history of Asia over the past 150 years. And what I do really is look at the whole of Asia as a single entity, which is something that is rarely done. And the reason I do that is to try and bring out the underlying similarities, the cultural similarities and synergies across Asia, which existed and which were a central aspect of Asia prior to the European interlude. And of course, I focus a lot on the European interlude or the Western interlude in Asia's history, and how Asia threw off the yoke of colonialism and then emerged in the second half of the 20th century as the most dynamic part of the world. And then I look more closely at what it was that enabled some parts of Asia to lead the way in that economic transformation. And the countries that did lead were, of course, Japan, Korea, South Korea particularly, and Taiwan. And the fact that was similar between Taiwan and Korea, of course, was that both were formerly Japanese colonies. My conclusion at the end was that all colonialisms are bad for the colonized. There is no question that colonialism is a plague for the colonized. It's wonderful for the colonizer, but some colonialisms have been slightly better than others. They're better among bad things, but they're slightly better. And what is unique is that if you look at the parts of Asia that were ruled by Britain the longest are the poorest parts of Asia today. And the parts of Asia that were ruled by Japan are the most prosperous. So I tried to explain why that is. And my key conclusion was that Western powers in Asia, particularly Britain and to some degree France, as well as the Netherlands, sought to divide in order to rule. And so when the British left the Indian subcontinent, they ensured that it was divided into two. When they left Palestine, they divided it into two. When they left Malaya, they ensured that it would be divided into two. There'd be a Singapore separate from Malaysia, etc. So that the legacy of colonialism in West Asia was even worse. So if you think about Iraq, Iraq was created in 1920 as an artificial union of the Ottoman vilayets of Mosul, which is primarily Kurdish, Baghdad, which was Sunni Arab, and Basra, which was Shia Arab. And to hold them together, there was a Sunni brought in from the Hijaz, from Makkah, as king, as a puppet king, ruling on behalf of Britain. And this was a recipe for disaster. An even greater disaster, of course, was Lebanon, created by the French as a multi-ethnic entity that has never really gelled to this day. And of course, we had the recent blast at Beirut port as yet another example of the baleful legacy of European colonial rule in that part of the world. Now, on the other hand, across East Asia, we had the countries that were ruled by Japan, and they had a slightly different experience. Of course, the Koreans particularly hated the Japanese period. The Chinese along the coast of China were treated awfully by the Japanese. There's no question that the Japanese colonial experience for them was horrendous. But the Japanese approach was aimed at economic development, first of all. And so when the Japanese left Taiwan, the literacy rate in Taiwan was 60%. In India, in 1947, the Indian subcontinent, the literacy rate was just 14%. 1 in 7 people could read and write in any language. And when the British left Iraq in 1958, the literacy rate there was 14% as well. So if you have a 60% literacy rate and a life expectancy at birth of 55, as Taiwan did in 1945, then you are already well along the path of economic development to a far greater extent than a country with a literacy rate of 14%, where 86% of the people can't read or write in any language. And so that beginning was very difficult for those that were European colonies. And similarly, if you look at the Philippines had a very brief period of Japanese rule, just 3 years. Now, in the Philippines and Indonesia, Japan's rule had one positive, and that was it created nations. It introduced Bahasa Indonesia as the language of instruction in the schools in Indonesia. Prior to that, it was Dutch. In the Philippines, it introduced Tagalog as the language of instruction. Prior to that, it was American English. So had the Japanese interlude not occurred, the Philippines probably would be much more like Puerto Rico today. Puerto Rico has remained an American colony. It's called a Commonwealth. The Philippines had similar status. And what changed was, during the Japanese phase, just like Napoleon united Germany and Italy for the first time and demonstrated the possibility of new nations in Europe, similarly, the Japanese period led to the notion of a possible new Burma a possible new Philippines, a possible new Indonesia, and they then formed into nations. So that it was a positive feature. And of course, the fact that Japan defeated Russia in the Russo-Japanese War of 1905, I think, was a crucial episode in Asian history. The important thing, my message, if there is a message in a book on history, the message is that Asia is one. We need to think back to the Asia that existed prior to colonialism, and the cultural linkages were deep. If you think about the nature of culture in Southeast Asia, it is very similar to India and China. Of course, there are differences, and we must celebrate those differences while also understanding the cultural unity and looking to that cultural unity as a basis for political and economic unity in the period ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Prasanjit. Thank you so much. Just a second. That was such a insightful sharing. And I like your final message, which is returning to cultural unity. Over the decades, we've seen the divides. And now, of course, the world needs to return to coming together. And uncovering all those truths, I mean, bringing it out like you did, so much research. You did it, and you passed on that message, whether it's on the press or through your book. People need to know. It's good to know all this. And then once we know this, then we realize, okay, there's a waking up. And the waking up is all happening now. And then we go back to our roots, go back to seeing the linkages across Asia. We're not really separate. We have so much in common and also differences. And there's so much learning from you, Prasanjit. I think we could have another hour, 2 hours with you, but we don't. But there's so much, for us to gain that knowledge is so useful, like I said, to equip ourselves with that knowledge. And we ourselves we know what needs to be done because we're entering into a new phase for the world. Tighter unity, truth, and this cohesion is going to bring us higher. And the waking up, that's most important, waking up of humanity and shifting it to the new version of us, the new version of the planet and societies, new best practices, new lifestyles, new rules. We'll see what happens the next few years, next few months, in fact. So now we have, let me see, who's next? Roshani Shanaz, based in India. I think she's in Mumbai. Yes, Roshani is, in Mumbai. And she is, I believe, she's an author. Her first book was, I think was Angel Speak. And she wrote this amazing essay. She submitted an essay for the Golden Door Awards. And this essay, my goodness, it just blew the judges away because she had so much courage to write about that topic. It was actually on a female matter, on the menstruation, on the stigmas of menstruation. She talked particularly in India. So she's a spiritual teacher, and she says here, okay, her truth is facilitating fellow humans to achieve spiritual freedom. She shared with me last time, she focuses on practical spirituality. So she wants to help recognize the divine potential in everyone, reaching their destiny. This is her purpose towards awakening destinies. This is what she does. And she used to spend, I think, most of her life in the entertainment industry in Bollywood. And she made the switch to this field, writing and spirituality, which is a very courageous switch because I can totally relate to that because I did the same thing. So I resonate with what Roshani has done and look forward to hearing what she has to share today. I don't even know what it is, but I'm looking forward to it. Roshani, it's over to you.
Thank you, Tahira, for bringing us on this platform, first of all. I live my life with these three truths: hope, and you shall renew; inspire, and you shall lead; transform, and you shall lead. So, namaste, everyone. This is Roshni Shanaz from Mumbai, India, and I am extremely honored to be here with all of you today. My life story, as Tahira just mentioned, is of a social butterfly from the glitterati world of films and media for over 23 years, who traveled all the way from glamour to God in her spiritual voyage. 2005-2006 was the year where I discovered the true meaning of life and death as a touch and go point. During the Mumbai floods that happened, I contracted leptospirosis, followed by an unknown relapse offshoot. My life took a complete U-turn, where I became a medical guinea pig with over 9 months of hospital hopping and going through 256 different medical tests, including the bone marrow biopsy. I turned up being temporarily immobilized, waist downwards, for about 10 months thereafter, due to a spinal cord puncture that was conducted twice on me in the hospital. And lying in that hospital in the ICU, weighing about just 28 kgs odd, with iron levels that perplexed the best of the doctors on how possibly I was not in a coma, was a miracle by itself. No one knew whether I would survive or not, but I did. And that little voice in my heart said it was not over. I didn't know when I would get out of this, but the deep voice of my soul's conviction in the plan of God said I indeed would get out of it. Finally, I did, raring to go and make my own film and all that my heart desired. But the universe seemed to have different plans, and God changed the gears of my life, completely 180 degrees, forging towards Him. The meaning of true hope and faith was uncovered at that time during my spiritual journey from 2009. Hope, I believe, is that seed of belief which germinates through faith and is transformed into a blossoming tomorrow by the waters of inspiration, conviction, and rightful action or inaction. Hope for me is to have that intrinsic faith that however challenging the dark times may be, the sun shall always rise tomorrow. And this crashing reality, my friends, is that we don't know if we ever shall wake up again or see the bright sunshine, hear the birds chirping, or meet our loved ones. But yet, this event is planned today. Our meetings, our weddings, our holidays, everything from like nano to macro is planned with enthusiasm and zest. Why do we do it if we don't even know that I'm going to be alive tomorrow to enjoy or honor it? We do it because of the seeds of hope and faith that our Creator has planted in us. If we didn't have this subliminal faith and hope that innately thrives within, we wouldn't be planning even a single moment of our day. Imagine a person who is told that he's going to die any moment. Is he going to plan anything? No. But however bad the condition of the person who doesn't know, can just with a little hope and faith start to plan how he's going to be back to his life with his loved ones once he gets well. To have hope and faith is not just about times when everything is hunky-dory and, going our way. Faith, I have seen, is when nothing is going your way, when all possible support around you is non-existent or crashing. And even then, you take the next step. When you didn't know whether that would be jumping into the valley or that you'd be given wings to fly. That is real hope and faith. Rest all our false solaces by our minds. We weren't ever promised, I think, that having faith is going to make everything okay. But I truly feel that we were promised that if we have faith, then we could be okay even when everything else was not around us. Magically, things may not just materialize or disappear for us, But if we sow the right karmic seeds with love, compassion, mindfulness, and integrity, then we shall surely find that strength and comfort of God in the darkest of our hours. It shall shine like a beaming luminance activated through the deep-seated optimism dormant within us. We don't buy a home and then leave it without cleaning it for months, right? The same we shouldn't be doing with our souls. The daily dust and muck from the debris of our life always will stick on us. But the ethics, habits, and the character of life that we live by shall help us in the daily cleansing and sweeping of our souls and energy. Just as we grow and harvest crops, I feel we should be doing that with our lives, fueling the mind with the right fertilizers, the fertilizer of positive thoughts, the honest waters of flow of our intentions to nurture, the bright sunshine of our loving actions to nourish it. Whether we are sowing seeds or weeds is all in our hands, friends. What we sow in this karmic garden shall be dependent on the sanskaras we create through principles, values, intentions, and actions we demonstrate. Hope, inspiration, and transformation, as this wonderful platform stands for, supported through faith, are the great pillars of life. So let's aspire to lead a life where you work towards hoping and creating this better tomorrow. You inspire others by leading a life of conscious living through example. And finally, enable your own transformation and that of others by walking your talk to live your truth. To have and share hope is one of the biggest blessings. To inspire and be inspired is to awaken the life force energy within. To transform is to pave the pathway to a higher living. So thank you for listening to me and helping my words ignite those latent flames of passion and purpose within each of you, I hope. Blessings of love, light, wisdom, hope, healing, faith, inspiration, and protection to all of you. I sign off with a namaste once again, which means the potential within me bows down to the potential within you. The truth within me bows down to the truth within you. The God within me bows down to the God within you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Roshani. That was quite beautiful. Thank you. There's a bit of an echo. Yes. Planting the seeds for this karmic garden. Yeah, absolutely. So we are planting seeds right now. Everybody's got something really unique. Everybody's got something special. We didn't have to worry about whether there'd be an overlap at all. No, it is all really different. And I didn't know about this, that you had this medical issue, Roshani, that what happened to you before. I didn't know about that. But one thing is that, I realize in life, when you go through darkness, that's where the brightest light emerges. Sometimes we just go through life blind. And some people say to me, do we need to go through suffering before we see the light? Actually, no, we don't need to. But sometimes our soul asks for it. I remember myself that I actually wanted to go through some suffering. And when I went past those obstacles, I felt it was such a blessing. So that suffering is actually a blessing. It's just a word. But when you get past it, it's it's actually heaven. It's a pathway to heaven. And the karmic garden is like the Garden of Eden. So we are trying to plant the Garden of Eden. Yes, the divinity in each of us, we're bringing each of us seeds of a divinity. And that seed is going to is germinating right now. And is growing and growing. This partnership, Golden Door with Hit Talks, is in germination. And it's going to grow and grow and grow, right? And we will see what it becomes. All right, so lots of inspiration here. And the person next, also in India, but in Goa. One place I've always wanted to visit because it's supposed to be one of the most beautiful parts. I mean, beach, beautiful beaches and beyond. Tallulah De Silva, she is such an amazing writer. Oh my God. Such a poetic writing. I had a pleasure to read some of her work. Flowing sentences. And she is an architect, but also a very passionate environmentalist, and combines that in terms of bringing children to enjoy nature and environment. So she's working on the youth, on the young. You should listen to her stories about how she teaches the young to go back to nature, which is so important right now when the young are lost in technology. Not that technology is bad. I am an advocate for technology, but it should never take over our soul. It should never take over our soul. It enables us, but nature will blossom us. So yes, here she is, an avid traveler. She had won the Shared Prize with Roshani, the second prize, Shared Prize, and for her essay, which is on relationships, very beautiful. And yes, so over to you, Tallulah De Silva.
I'm so happy to be here. And today what we are going to do is, I'm going to take you on a walk. And I just about a few hours ago, I was, Tahira is right, I do a lot of work with children. And just a few hours ago, I went with a group of the children that I work with to this lovely, pristine bay in Goa. Goa is really beautiful. And this is along one of the rivers. And, there's a little rocky island, which is not inhabited. And we took a few tin boats that we have made. And, we walked nearly for an hour to reach because the waters were very shallow. We also carried a dog with us. And we quickly put him in the boat and we walked along with him. And once we were there, it was so beautiful. We explored the rocky island. We looked at crabs. We looked at different kind of organisms that you don't otherwise see. And the whole experience was so special and unforgettable. And, I've been doing a number of walks over the last, so many years, about 10 years. And I think I draw inspiration from the experiences I have had with my dad when I was growing up. And we would spend a lot of time in my ancestral village. We would, go to the river. My father would often swim. I would often be found sleeping in the mangroves, in the shade of the mangroves or the coconut grove. And so after, all these years, I decided that I wanted to, follow my heart and share some of these experiences with students, with children. So I've been doing that with, I've done tree walks, I've done architectural walks, professional walks, spring walks, and walks to the salt pan. There's so much, to experience and see in Goa. And a lot of my friends tease me that I should possibly be titled Our Lady of Walks because of this. And I've recently accepted the title. And, for me, the greatest joy is when I see, children completely transformed by these experiences outdoors. I find old people that accompany me and, they relive their childhood memories and wade in the water with me, go in the slushy mud with me. And the whole experience is in a way, humbling. And so I thought, today I would share with you 3 key walks that have the power of transformation. I think walks in our lives have a transformative power, and we need to allow that, to happen to us. One of the walks that I did some years ago was, at a moment when I was really broken. I felt myself, completely in darkness. because I had suddenly turned a single mother, a single parent, and I found myself so isolated and alone. And my inspiration, of course, I'm very spiritual, so my inspiration was, Jesus. And I took on to, looking at the suffering that he endured, and that was like my light in darkness. And suddenly one day, I just decided to walk. I decided to go to a place again on an island where there was a lovely chapel so that I could go and, spend some time in reflection and basically to, spend some time in peace. And I did about a 20 kilometer walk. I didn't know whether I could manage it. And in this walk, it was all about me, about overcoming my fears, overcoming, various emotions of shame, of loneliness, of rejection. And at the end of it, I was so tired, and blissful that I just collapsed at the church in prayer. I've been doing a couple of, spiritual walks for the past 2 years, and these are pilgrimages that I did with my community. And, this was again like a 20 kilometer plus. And to let you know that I'm not a sports person, I've never walked so much at one stretch in my life. And this walk that I did was basically to a spiritual place in Goa that is dedicated to a saint. And I was walking with my community. And, I was so surprised and stunned on this walk to see old people, people who could not walk. They were aged, there were youngsters, there were children. And I was all the time, thinking about all the people that I saw along the walk. And unlike the earlier walk that I did for myself, this was not about me or, anything that I was experiencing about my own, emotions, but it was all about looking at others in empathy. And, all absolute fears disappeared. And I looked at, helping my fellow community members and reaching to a destination. And again, the end was very beautiful because we were together in prayer, in music, singing songs and hymns. A walk that I did recently was, just 2 days ago. If you are not aware, 2nd of October is celebrated as, the great Mahatma's birth anniversary, and this is Mahatma Gandhi. And, in Goa right now, we are going through a lot of challenges when we talk about, degradation of the environment in Goa. There are a lot of forests being cut for development projects. There is a corridor, of a road network and a railway line that is being built to transport for coal transportation. And a lot of my friends who are activists and who work in this sphere, raised a call that we would do a peace march. And on the same day, when we were scheduled to walk, there was an order by the collector saying that section 144 would be imposed. And if anybody was found walking in groups of 4 or more, or they were walking in a procession, they were likely to be arrested. And in spite of this, we all, walked because we reached our destination. It was a 102 kilometer walk. I didn't, of course, do the whole walk, but I accompanied some of my friends. And it was again, when we reached the point where we started, it was so beautiful. And there was solidarity, and that was the key. And what I want to end with is, that there is a power of transformation within. We set a benchmark. This was not about doing something for the community, but more about changing myself. At every point, I found that, every challenge I wanted to overcome, there was a transformation within me, and I think when we set a benchmark, we become better at everything. And I'm glad that I'm here with you on this journey, and I'm excited to walk further, with hope, inspiration, and hopefully for more transformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Talula. Wonderful story. Just, okay, just a second. Okay. All right. Wonderful story. Sorry, I was unmuting. And yes, a lot of transformation going on here. A lot of stories of transformation. And for us to be inspired by. You had that again, that God encounter with God, with you say, and how that has brought you up. And I believe, Talula, that you are going to keep rising because you're so passionate about what you do. Based on feedback I've been getting, that you're just so immersed in what you speak about, an environment and children, that you walk it and you live it. And that itself is testimony. So we have next is someone all the way down under, but not Australia, further down under, New Zealand. Tony Knight. Tony Knight is, I think it's probably 8 a.m. for him. Well, we are struggling. It's 8 a.m. on the 5th of October. And I'll tell you a few things about Tony. A very humble man, a very beautiful writer also, and deeply spiritually led. I'm seeing a lot of people here. We can see all our speakers are mostly spiritual in some ways, in different degrees. But he's also very spiritual, and he focuses on the nature's laws, nature's codes. He looks at metaphysics, and he's traveled around the world in terms of, as a spiritual discoverer, spirituality discoverer. I believe he's done tours, etc. And he's even told me that he's traveled to Pakistan, which is, part of my origins. So that's not very many people go there to go on pilgrimage. So Tony has is quite an inspirer. He has this group of New Zealanders who follow his posts, and every day he makes a posting about the new world, about what's going to happen. It's always very positive. Okay, he does talk about some realities and some harsh truths, but they're mostly inspiring and very well written. So Tony is silver medalist for the Golden Door Rex Commonwealth, which is for the writers who are change champions. He's definitely a change champion. He calls himself the change agent for freedom. So he wants to unlock that within everyone for a more positive path. And so he was a silver medalist for that. And I look forward to hearing what is Tony Knight's story. Tony?
Thank you for that, Tahira. And it's great to be here and to have this opportunity to present my truth and my part of my story. For me, I've always been interested in, ever since a little child, I've always been interested in who I am, where we're going, why am I here. I've always been fascinated with the big picture and always looked to the stars and dreamed and wondered. And so I was going to take everyone through a little journey, through the elements from above to below and back. And when we talk about the stars, we talk about the element ether. Ether is the element of light and sound. It is the invisible aspect of life. It is, you could say, it's the divine matrix. It's the source. It represents the unified field. What do we call a unified field in quantum physics? And from here, this is where we could say that our great spirit resides. And connected to that spirit is our soul. Our soul, you could say spirit is poured into our soul and soul is related to our passion. Soul is our fire aspect. Soul is related to our heart and our most deepest desires of the heart. And from soul is connected to our mind, and our minds is related to the air element. Air is related to thoughts, our thoughts and our imaginations. From our mind, we are very much related to our direction. This is where, when we have a thought, our thoughts are electric in nature, as opposed to our emotions, which is related to our water aspect. This is magnetic. So these are reflections of the ultimate creation. Everything is electromagnetic, and our left and right brain harmonize our emotions with our thoughts. From there, we go down into our body, our vehicle, our physical structure. This is related to our earth element. Our earth is related to, as I say, it's our structure, it's our body, it's material things. And we can also relate to Earth as the planet. But the planet is really a combination of all these four elements. Our planet has a soul, a planet has a mind, a planet has even emotion, energy and motion, and our planet has its physical structure. So this is just like us. As a human being, we are literally infused. We're alchemy in action. We're infused elements, and each of these elements have qualities. They have states of being which we can utilize to enhance our life, to create our life, to answer those questions when we came in as to why are we here and who are we and how can we make all these elements? How can we alchemize these elements? How can we knit or integrate these elements together to create a life that's better for us and for the world? And these are questions that I ask. The difficult question for me is always how. I can dream big, but bringing it into the physical reality is the real work here. And I use the natural laws and the natural principles. They are also wonderful tools that we can use. These are the Hermetic laws I'm referring to, the natural principles brought by Hermes, known as Hermes, or also known as Thoth in Egyptian times. And a key law is as above, so below, or it's actually the law of correspondence. And it goes as above, so below, as within, so without. And with this law, it's basically saying that who we are is reflected in the heavens, and the heavens is also poured down into us. There's trillions of stars in the sky, just as there's trillions of cells in our body. And within those cells, there's trillions and trillions or infinite amount of atoms. And then within those atoms is the same stuff that's in the stars. So we are intricately connected. We are intricately aligned and connected once we start to harmonize these elements. And within all of these laws and elements, there are codes, there are natural codings. And we use them every day, but we don't always realize. Our alphabet, for instance, is a code. Each letter is a code. Each letter is a representation of energy. A, B, C is also 1, 2, 3. And the A and 1 is the male element, 2 is the female element, and also B, and C, from 1 and 2 creates C, which is what we see. And so we can go on and on about this, but there's much to this, but that's just giving you an example. So once we start to understand and integrate these elements, something magical happens. It's like quantum. It's a quantum effect. The whole is always greater than the sum of the parts. And we are many parts. But as we start to align ourselves and integrate and answer these big questions, who are we, where we're going, why are we here, everything starts to come into alignment as we put the right questions onto the core causal things which create our life. And my coming into that, I actually live in a property now. I have a beautiful stand of nature around me with the trees and the water, the earth. And so this is how I've been inspired, is by living, connecting with nature, connecting with the physical nature has helped me to realign myself back into someone with a lot more energy and a lot more inspiration and a lot more passion to help people, to help awaken freedom within myself, awaken truth, awaken consciousness. This is what I feel is important for me. We start from the foundation of our earth and we connect with the ultimate questions and realities of the world, and we can truly create a new earth, a new way of being. And I believe this opportunity right now is the perfect time. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Tony. By the way, you're glowing a bit on the edges. Yes, Tony and I have had discussions on quantum physics and about the new earth and all that. And this inner universe, the reflection of the outer universe, and about the black hole and about the DNA and the CGATs. There's so much of it, and it's so exciting. Especially when we start relating it to the world and how we are living right now. We go into the metaphysics, the quantum physics. We start relating into our life. How it all comes together, how the universe and we as persons come together. And this is what's so interesting when you read about what Tony writes about and talks about. It makes us stop and think how interconnected we are. And we tend to lose track of that in the physical world, in this 3D. And we always need to be reminded we're interconnected. We're not separate from the universe. And this sort of 8-speaker thing is also interesting because we're interconnected, flowing together. So, yes, I'm bringing in a special message each time. So now, thank you so much, Tony. Yes. So the next person I want to introduce, by the way, Tony, you can mute. The next person I want to introduce is Dr. Judy Delamini. I hope to pronounce it right. She is a vice chancellor of a university, a very proficient academic, also a businesswoman, also a humanitarian, and an author. So she says her truth is that everybody is born equal. Positive affirmation will enable each one to achieve their potential. She wants to focus on raising up or unchaining the underdogs. showing them what they're capable of. And her book gives examples of them who have achieved success. So, each of us have been underdogs at one point of our lives, okay? And we had to go through kind of journey, especially when you're pursuing your truth, a deeper truth. You would find yourself being a misfit. You'll find that it's not a normal path. You'll be doing things which others are not doing. And it'll be a very lonely journey. And then sometimes you have to go against the grain. That's what an underdog does in some ways. They're going against it and they suffer a bit. They face the obstacles. So the underdogs, and I was discussing this with Dr. Judy, that we need to redefine the word underdog because they need to be celebrated and needs to be a better word for them now. Because they are doing things which not many will want to do, and they're facing the brunt of it. And now it's time to celebrate them and bring them up. Right? So, Judy, look forward to hearing your message.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Tahira, for giving us this platform, and thanks, Vicky, for hosting us. It's a true honor to be here. I thought what I would love to share is my journey and the lessons that I've learned through my life journey. And I'll take you back to the late 50s where I was born, into a very brutal system, the apartheid system, which actually told everyone that looks like me that they were less than human. They would amount to nothing except being a servant to the master. So that was one side of where and how I was born, or the world that I was born into. On the other side, I was presented with a beautiful family that was so loving. So I had these two opposing reinforcement, if you like, the negative one and the positive one. So the first lesson I learned as a child is that it's important to have a positive attitude, because if you have a positive attitude, you use both the positive reinforcement, because it tells you you can be everything that you choose to be if you give it your best shot, and the negative reinforcement, which forces you to prove to yourself that you are better than that. So that was my first induction into life. And as a child, I had other experiences which has informed what I do now, amongst other things. I met a doctor when my dad wasn't well. It was at the age of 4, a Black successful doctor. It was the first time I met a doctor that was Black. He actually healed my dad. And that day, my mind was made up. I will be a medical doctor because I want to heal people, but I also want to be successful, because that was my drive. That is when I started to have dreams. Move on to my teenage years when I entered medical school. And I happened to go to a graduation ceremony. And amongst the people that were graduating, there was a middle-aged man who was graduating with a doctorate, a PhD in education. I listened to his journey. He actually was a T-boy. They used to call Black people boys, and this was called a T-boy. And what it meant is that he would walk from the township to town to serve tea at a legal firm. He was a self-made person. Through education, he overcame all that and obtained a PhD, and he became a professor. Then I had my second dream, even before I had achieved my first one, that I was going to have a doctorate. And the beauty of this is that the first lesson is that you can dream to be anything. The second one is education is everything. It will liberate you from poverty. It will liberate you from a working class to whatever class you wish to find yourself. But the other thing was that at medical school, because my education, Bantu education, had not prepared me as well as if I had a normal education. There's something that Prasenjit said about colonization, the different types of colonization. Mine was the worst one, which actually meant less literacy, worse education for Blacks who happen to be in the majority in the country. So I grasped this education. I failed at medical school, and instead of giving up, I actually said, this doesn't define who I am. I will beat the system, I will give it my best shot, and indeed I will become a medical doctor. It humbled me, but it also built resilience in me. And then there was this other dream of wanting to be a PhD. I deferred that dream because I got married, and then I got my son and then my daughter. So I had to focus on creating wealth for the family and also just being a mother and a wife. So I deferred the dream of being a PhD. Life was good, I did well, till I lost my son. For those that have never lost a child, there is no pain worse than that. It felt like my heart was ripped apart. My soul was shattered into tiny pieces. But what came out of that were quite a few things. One of them, I learned just the importance of the God that I pray. I learned that when you get the gift of a child, which in my view is the most beautiful gift that anyone can give you, you assume they are yours till the person that gives them to you, at least my way of looking at it, takes them. Then you realize that they never belonged to you in the first place. The other thing I realized is that when I buried him, it dawned on me that the only thing that he's taking with him is his soul. All the education that we've invested in him and he's invested in himself, and every material thing he leaves behind. And the only thing he takes with him is his soul. So the importance of nurturing the soul became very important to me. The other thing I learned is that tomorrow is not guaranteed. All you have is today. And you know, I'm very shy. I'm a complete introvert, and I would do anything humanly possible to run away from being a guest speaker or anything that has to do with public speaking. But when I lost my son, it felt like I lost all the inhibitions. I had deferred doing my PhD. When I buried him, I went and completed it. But I didn't only do that. I was exposed to so much beautiful life journeys that I felt I need to share this. This actually meant writing a book. It never was my dream, but I wrote the book. And this meant I had to go and talk to young people about the stories in the book. So it changed my life. It changed my purpose. My purpose became telling stories that will inspire, telling stories that will make someone who looks like me, who was told that they are nothing, that you know what, you can be somebody and you can overcome any challenge in life. So I thought I would just share that. And the beauty is that no matter how deep the pain, if your time is not up, you have to continue to live. And the best way to live is to be very in touch with your maker, with your soul, with your spirituality and your truth. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Judy. By the way, she is the gold medalist for the Golden Door Rex Kamavir Medal for the author change champion. So she is the gold medalist, and there's only one gold medalist. All right. She The story, Julie, was very, very touching. Losing a child is something that impacts you for life. But what happened, I think, with you is that you sort of reached 0 point and you just rose up and you went in all directions. You wrote your book. You became such a great humanitarian. The kind of projects you told me, shared with me, you're doing in Africa, in South Africa, huge projects. And you put your heart and soul, like you're so busy. And also in the university, you're stretched at all angles, you know. And you're so committed and so steadfast. It's like, you know, nothing can break you down now. You're like a rock. So I'm touched by your story, Judy, and I believe others are also. And to get past whatever they go through is a blessing eventually. And yes, you have the birth, as Talula said here, from death there is a new birth. You had a rebirth, something great. And now we have, I think, a Mystic Sky. That's her pen name. She is second prize winner of the poetry segment of the Golden Door Awards. So Mystic is a Filipino based in Switzerland, and she has been sharing about the issues of labeling, you know, placing people, categorizing people in terms of labels and stigma, racial stigma, and all other types of stigma. So she calls herself a traveler, truth seeker. Yes, so she is, well, she's an author, and she did share with me that a homemaker, but she has gone beyond. Even though she's a full-time homemaker now, she's really going all out in her writing and exploring that and bringing out truth in poetry. I've always felt that when you write poetry, because it's so much flow, if you allow it, you can bring out so much within you. There's less structure, there's less definition. And for me, I believe that poetry can be in any form. So it doesn't have to be written in a certain way. This is the way I look at it as a poet myself. All right. So Mystic, she did share that she was quite shy about speaking, but when she talks, she really inspires because she talks about things which others won't want to address. So Mystic, look forward to hearing from you.
Hi, Tahira, and thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Tahira, for giving me this platform to speak about my truth. Like Tahira said, I love to write, but I am not really used to talking. It's like everything flows in my brain, but it doesn't really just come out when I talk. And like Vicky said before we started, it's like there's a flow. And it kind of surprised me because what Judy was telling is about purpose. And that's actually the topic that I chose to speak about. When Tahira mentioned that we have this speaking event for HIT about transformation, I watched the videos and I asked myself so many questions like, what is really transformation? And then I realized that what I was writing, the current book that I'm writing is actually about change and transformation. I realize is change that begins actually with us, with whatever endeavor or whatever we want to do or whatever we want to achieve. It has to start with us. And it's about liberating your mind before you can actually do something worth in its outcome. So what I want to share with you are questions that made me question myself as well, and made me question what is the purpose of what I am doing. So when I was like researching about my book, I encountered questions like, have you ever felt this feeling like you've been running in circles and you've done so many things in your life, you've achieved so many things in your life, but still you feel like when you're at that peak or when you achieve it, it's still not that. You feel like you're empty, or the dream that you've been chasing all along. And then when you reach that, you somehow feel like it's not it, and you're still lost. You still don't know that part of yourself. Or there are moments like, I wanted to share my truth, but then I'm scared. I don't know how to push through. I don't know what to do to like continue to achieve something. And then I found out that one of the reasons why I'm blocked to reaching that potential is because I don't really know the purpose of what I'm doing. I found out that purpose is like when you find fulfillment in what you do. And when you just keep doing things, but you don't really know what your purpose is, it's like you're like going in so many directions without a goal. And in my case, it even happened the other way around. I did something first, and then that made me realize my purpose. And it started really with my journey with Golden Door, when they started telling me to do this, write this. It made me question myself and what I am really doing. The poetry book that I wrote before is about my depression time. I'm having this postpartum depression as a mom. And then I thought that writing the truth in that book, sharing the stories of how vulnerable someone can be and how one can find the strength by accepting that vulnerability. I thought that was like already it, the purpose of the book and all that. But the Goldie with Golden Door made me realize that there's something more to that. Writing the truth is like the medium, and then finding the purpose for that book was like the fulfillment. Finding readers who found like finding readers who found like joy or hope or inspiration, and then getting messages that they say, thank you for these words of inspiration, it has made my day. That is kind like of that I discovered that was like the purpose of the book, and that it made my journey have like a meaning to it. And then it doesn't feel like hollow anymore. Like, yeah, you've reached that part, you've done it, you've publicized it, people started buying it, but then there's like no value in it. So I found like finding your purpose is like finding the fulfillment by looking at the value that you can do. And on that journey, while I'm on that journey with the first book, I wrote my second book. And this is, I think, a little bit more difficult to talk about than the first one, because the book is titled AYO. It's for Educate Your Opinion. And while I was doing research and surveys and asking people to share their stories to me, so I understand what to write in the book as well, they're like a very mixed response. Some people say it's too much. Some people say it's liberating. And then I questioned again the purpose of of why I wanted this truth to be out there. And then I realized that when I ask myself these questions, it kind of helped me like find my way to really do what I feel like has to be done. And I think as a writer, when you write something which is true to yourself, you really never regret writing it, no matter what the consequences is. So I found that asking myself small questions leads me to rewarding answers. Like the first was, what is important for me? Why do I really want to publish this book? And then the second one is, what am I passionate about? What makes me happy? Because I think that also serves like a question to your purpose. If you're not happy with what you're doing, it's like the energy is going to be blocked. And then the third one is, what do you want to achieve really in all this that you want to do? And by answering these three small questions, and I even thought it actually can evolve. This purpose evolves with the truth that you find in your life. So it doesn't have to be like just one. And once you find that purpose, or once I found that purpose, it gave value to what I am doing, and it gave meaning to what I am doing, and then it then lead me to believe that what I am doing is something good, and what I am doing can bring hope and transformation to other people. And despite this topic of the AO, which is all about stereotyping, labeling, refuting those labels, and all that, despite the difficulty of telling people what it is about and the detrimental effects it has, I was able to push through because I found my purpose.
Thank you, Mystic. I want to ask you something. You discovered your purpose, was it during the conference or before?
During the purpose was when I realized that it is that I was already on that journey, but I don't want to do it.
Sometimes we don't know. So on the second day, I'll just share, on the second day, we had a 3-day Golden Door.
Yeah.
So the first day was inauguration and the panel, etc., and the awards. And the second day was educational.
Yeah.
There's facilitators coming in. And one of the workshops we had was on discovering purpose.
Yes, that's
We had the audience, we had the participants, part of it. And so Golden Door is not just an awards, it's a platform to uncover your truth. So even the audience discovered their truth.
Yeah.
And the last day we had the speakers, which are the participants, giving a little, 30-minute. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Mystic, and you can mute. And yes, you spoke well. You don't have to worry about anything. As long as you speak from your heart, you're fine, actually. Yeah, so purpose and truth comes together, actually. Now, the final speaker, and it's really interesting, is that Rusty always comes right at the end. Rusty, I hope I pronounced correctly, Rusty Labakshane, was previously in Zimbabwe, now in South Africa, I think. Rusty has had an unbelievable life. I mean, anyone who can go through what he went through and come out of it alive and sane needs to be commended. He was wrongfully imprisoned for 10 years. He was longer, actually, longer than that, but he was out in 10 years. and the horrendous conditions that he went through. As I went through his book, and it leaves you in tears, that you don't have your own breath, that you're breathing somebody else's space because there's no space. What is so beautiful about Rusty is that it didn't break him to a point that he became a damaged person. It broke him to a point that he became a beautiful person with a mission. He had to learn how to forgive these people who wrongfully accused him. And he's teaching that to the world. So, can you imagine that? For 10 years, your life is taken away from you and you're tortured. I'll leave it to him to describe whatever he's going to share. But if the world can learn that level of forgiveness, it'll be a different world. Okay, Rusty, over to you.
Thank you, Tahira. Thanks, Vicky. I'd like to start off by saying that I believe that resilience is something that you can develop. You're not born with it. On the 3rd of April, 2003, during the height of the political lawless land invasion chaos in Zimbabwe, against police evidence, without a body and on presumptions, I was wrongly convicted of drowning a fish poacher. The shock was inexpressible. I was innocent. I was a successful, self-made businessman with a high standing in the community. Utterly humiliated, my life changed forever. I shared a cell 13 meters long by 3 meters wide with 78 other inmates. We were packed like sardines with legs all crossing over in the middle. We all faced the same direction. When you turned over, it was all together. As cushioning against the cold concrete floor, you'd fold 2 of your paper-thin, worn-out, lice-ridden blankets several times to fit your space, then covered yourself with the 3rd one. We had no basins or taps in the cells, and only one set of clothing was allowed at any one time. So we had to wash our clothes in the cell toilets at night wearing a blanket, then hang them on the walls with smuggled book staples to dry by the next morning. In 2005, during the Zimbabwe dollar crash, Harare city ran out of water. For 3 years, while in Chikurubi maximum security prison, each prisoner was allocated only 1 plastic cup of water a day. 1 cup of dirty orange city runoff water from a nearby dam carried by farm prisoners. That was to drink, clean your teeth, wash your face, bath, everything for 3 years. The humiliation of being labeled a murderer in terrible conditions were extremely hard to deal with, as was the pain of my bitterness, anger, hatred, frustration, and revenge for what they'd done and were doing to me. I hated them bitterly, and initially would lie there for hours, wishing every terrible thing on each of them in turn, the poacher, the police, the judge, the ministry, and all who were involved in my conviction. Then one day, I was struck by the realization that they'd all forgotten it might be long ago. Here I was, consumed by the unfairness of it all, and they, blissfully unaware of the evil I wished on them every day. In the end, I was only hurting myself. I was carrying all that in my head and beating myself up for nothing. The single biggest lesson I learned in prison was true forgiveness. And I believe it's bigger than anything I could have achieved on my own. True forgiveness was inspired by God Almighty, and so I was letting go. It was a huge weight off my shoulders, and I learned to live in the moment from then on. The past was too painful, and the future full of unkept promises. So I just dealt with each day as it was. I learned to have faith, because no amount of worrying was going to change what I was going through. If you have anger or resentment towards anyone in any way, it will eventually destroy you, because that is what those emotions do. They steal from you. They steal happiness and freedom. We all want too much in our lives. concentrating on what we haven't got instead of being grateful for what we have. And for me, giving thanks to God every day goes a long way. For my health, beautiful family, a lovely home, a soft bed, running water, and so on. When there's no food, no water, and people are dying all around you, you become grateful for the fact that you're still breathing. And another day is a blessing. When you lie in a cell with 78 other people and your breath is not even your own, gratitude suddenly has a different meaning altogether. The healthiest of all human emotions is gratitude. Remember that and practice it. Having an attitude of gratitude is one of the most impactful habits for a fulfilling and healthy life. I wish I could express the happy, bubbly, beautiful, exciting feeling I felt as I walked out those prison gates to freedom after 10 years of hell. People don't appreciate freedom. And I've realized that even when you're not in prison, there are ways in which we imprison ourselves. If you look at your life as it is, how free are you within your circumstances? Freedom is not just not being in prison. Freedom is the ability to make a choice and act on it. Freedom is letting go of what you can't control. Freedom is forgiveness. Freedom is being free from negativity. Freedom brings health. If you can be free in all areas of your life, then you'll reach your full potential. In conclusion, I was fortunate. I'd made it big, was very successful, and possibly during that time, I became a bit arrogant. But that experience has made me realize that I'm just a normal human being, that you can't value your life based on your title, your success, or your material possessions. If you had everything taken away from you right now, who would be left? What would people see looking at you as a person? We need to look at our core values more deeply and see how we can change lives and maybe make a difference in this world. There were times in there when I just felt this was the end. I didn't have the mental strength left to overcome more of those never-ending challenges. But from the bowels of despair comes this realization that just as my mind had helped drag me through those depths that far, so could it pull me out of them. Each and every one of us, when you dig deep enough, can find this inner strength to get through life's toughest times and deepest holes, out of our cages, out of the dark. Every one of you here today is faced with challenges, day in and day out. Those that you look for, and those that sneak up on you from behind. But who you are, and the depth of your determination, is what's going to elevate you to become someone that people will look up to and forever remember. Thank you so much, Tahira. Thanks, Vicky. Thanks, everyone. God bless you all.
Thank you, Rusty. What a way to end this Hit Talks Golden Door. Forgiveness. And very moving. And how you overcome that challenge. Rusty is a Golden Door Rex Kamavir medalist. He is a chain champion in that way, going back to the basics of forgiveness, which is the basic truth. He is a bronze medalist. So we take things for granted, and we have such high expectations in life. We're dissatisfied, we're protesting, we're revolting, but go back to the breath, go back to the basics. We can just go back to the basics, you can find joy. And Rusty is reminding us about that. No challenge can bring us down if we know that we have the basics. Just breath and life. being alive today. Thank you all for sharing inspiring messages. Rusty, Tony, for your knowledge on metaphysics, nature, mystic, on purpose. Judy also on purpose, but overcoming tragic loss and becoming a limitless person. Talula for walking a passion. Jeremy for being an ultra creative person and always wanting to be more and more and more. Who else? Prasanjit, which is unfathomable knowledge. he tells us that there's always so much. And back to cultural unity. Roshani, overcoming a huge obstacle in her life, medical, and making the big switch to her new pathway and having the courage to do so. Is there anyone else I have not missed out? Don't forget, it's almost 5 a.m. for me. Okay, I've covered everyone. Yes, I have. I think it's over to you, Vicky.
Thank you so much. That was just an absolutely amazing episode. I just have to say, it is just the way that everything flows through, the inspirational messages, the way that all the speakers brought through their soul, you know, their purposes, their mission, their thoughts, their feelings, their truth, their hope, their inspiration, their transformation. So thank you so much for absolutely every single person that has actually been part of this special edition. And I just love you all so much. It's just, I feel your energy, I feel your soul, and from the bottom of my heart and from HIT Team's heart as well, I'd like to, again, just send you so much love. And before we go, I would also like to share with you a little bit about the other episodes that we've got coming up, because HIT Talks is growing and growing and growing. So we have shows every single 13 days. And the reason it's 13 days is because it's linked with the Mayan calendar. So it's linked with the energies. So, you know, there's a lot of themes behind this. It's not just the power of 8. There's a lot of energetic work behind it as well. And so the next episode that we have is not 13 days time, but it's in 7 days time. And that is with the British School of Etiquette. And that's another special edition. Because when we do the special editions, the special edition dates are actually chosen between the energetic connection between the hosts. So today, the energetic connection was between Tahira and myself, so hence we chose this day. So that is why the one with Philip Sykes from the British School of Etiquette is on the 11th. And then on the 17th of October, we then have our HIT Talks as well. So, you know, I'd love every single one of you to, you know, to continue joining us, continue being part of us. And for everybody else that is from HIT Talks as well, follow Golden Door, see what they're doing. You know, this is a collaboration. Everything we do is about spreading love, hope, inspiration, and truth throughout the world. And we get to do that together. So thank you so much for every single person here. My heart, and from the bottom of Tahira's heart as well, we would like to send you blessings, and send you blessings from Hope, Inspiration, and Transformation, and send you blessings from Golden Door. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.